Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Let's start with you, Bob. You've got veteranhope.org, and Brandon brought you in here, but I want to start there because we're going to be talking a lot about what you got going on right now.
Well, it's pretty simple. The predatory embezzlement of veteran benefits is causing parental alienation, and nothing rips our hearts out or crushes the soul like the loss of our relationship with our loved ones. Corrupt state officials and judges are using our families to steal federal funds by converting veteran benefits into state revenue. And lawyers take advantage of this corruption by profiteering on the families. So I built Veteran Hope around the idea of putting an end to that corruption and profiteering. First, by bringing cases to the federal court, suing judges for due process of law. And then I learned something very interesting. You can sue judges for money, and nothing will get a judge's attention like losing a paycheck. Nothing gets a lawyer's attention like losing a paycheck. So we'd like them to lose all of their paychecks and go through the same thing we have to go through every day. We've brought some cases to the court. We're raising them towards the Supreme Court of the United States with a very simple question. Are state judges actually bound by the supreme law of the land? And of course, the answer is yes. But we want the Supreme Court to tell these state judges they're personally liable and can be sued for money for the violation of our rights in the complete absence of all possibility of jurisdiction on the subject matter of veteran benefits. And that's the direction we're moving. We've also brought a bill to correct the problem by exposing the whole criminal element behind it, which is the financial motivation to go after these veterans in particular and steal this money. And that's under what's called the child welfare system in Chapter 4 of the Social Security Act. And we get to see the part called Chapter 4D because they say that's how the state recovers money for welfare payments that have gone out. And they've just applied that to everybody, whether they're Title 4D or not. And that's where we want to focus our attention.
We're getting a little further into the nuts and bolts right off the bat than I wanted to. I was hoping that you'd give us an introduction as to who you were and how you got into this situation in the first place.
In the beginning, I went through. I'm kidding. I was in the military in the 1980s, and then got out on medical. Went through a horrible divorce, like so many veterans. Basically, we have a very high divorce rate, and I participated in that. And then I spent time fighting with the VA. And while that was hanging in the wind, I was hanging in the wind and ended up homeless. Ended up in a wheelchair, spent most of the 1990s with my life in shambles. Then I finally got my starting point of my disability claims coming through.
Wow.
And the state jumped on me in the year 2000 and embezzled my benefits, leaving me with about $600 to live on. And I immediately became homeless again. So that was very difficult. Throughout this whole time, I was cut off from my children, complete parental alienation. From 1991 to 2007, I had zero contact with my older children. I had one child from another relationship. I haven't seen her since 1999. Jesus. And every day I have a certain amount of anger about this. And every day I ask myself the question, what can I do to stop this problem, to help other veterans around me? Because if it weren't for the veterans that helped me, I'd have been dead a long time ago, 6 times.
Yeah, that is a path that Pop and I know all too well. The conclusion you came to is the exact same one that he came to it first, and then he showed me, and I came to it as well. How do we save the other guys? Because we've already done our thing. Brandon, you're the one who brought us together to begin with. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your situation?
Yeah, I talked to Bob, and then we started talking, and I'm like, man, I had no hope. I'm like, who do you turn to in these situations, right?
Yep.
And so I was with 10th Mountain Division.
Wow, that place sucks.
I know, the black hole, right? And from 2005, and then I officially retired, medically retired in 2015, but I got out in 13. I was med boarded. So, we was in a triangle of death, did multiple combat tours there. Jimenez and Foudy and all those guys in the Delta Company deal with Dust One. And just like everybody else, you go through things like that, and then you get a divorce and you have a few kids, and then all of a sudden you're in this crazy system of the court. And you have no chance at all. I mean, you're in, once you get in there, you're done. So it's like, who do you turn to? I was actually induced by my attorney that said, if you don't give your VA benefits up to the friend of the court in Michigan, that's what we call them, friend of the court, then I gotta, withdraw from the case. I can't be your attorney.
That's illegal, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, this is the way it was. And then when I went to the friend of the court, and I'm like, what's going on? Because I thought these benefits were protected. And the caseworker says,
they are.
You don't give them up, you're going to jail. You're going to go to jail. And I'm like, what is going on? So for me, it's one of those, again, it's one of those horror stories. And then I started talking to you and Bob and it's just one of those examples.
That's far too common a story. Don Wenger, we've got you here as well. You're a former Marine, if I'm not mistaken. Why don't you give a little bit about you?
Well, I appreciate you having me on here. I spent 36 years in the Marine Corps Reserve.
Wow.
I was a gunnery sergeant in E7 in my 15th year in the Marine Corps when I got married, and then was married for 16 years, and then I spent another 5 years in the Marine Corps after that, a little more than 5 years. And then when I went through a divorce, which I didn't want, my attorney said, "Yeah, she wants part of your retirement too." And I said, "What? I didn't even know that was a thing."
Yeah.
And so not only that, they ordered me to get a job and pay child support and alimony based on my income and the disability on top of that. And I told my attorney that I said I didn't think disability was allowed to be used for child support and alimony, and I was right, but she said, "Oh no, they require it." And of course, this was over 10 years ago, and I was not nearly as knowledgeable as I am now. And so I went back and forth to court several times. I was threatened with incarceration because during a period of unemployment during COVID, I was threatened with incarceration, and the judge just hammered me. And
on what grounds?
With not only was it usage of my benefits, but also division of my retirement pay, which is a completely different story. Is just been the most, I can't even think of a clean word to use here, but it's just one of the most messed up cases you could possibly imagine. And it would probably take me an hour to explain that. But I found Bob, and we started traveling back and forth to DC correcting this. Now I know, as the rest of you do, that it is not legal to use VA disability compensation for anything. So that's the short of it. I don't know if you want more, because I don't want to talk all day.
Yeah, well, I think every man in this room right now has quite the lengthy story. I've actually showed Brandon my file. Mine got so extreme that the United States Army, or the brigade headquarters element of my former command, actually assisted my wife in kidnapping my daughter for 2.5 years. And I lost $140,000 in cash and assets during the process of the divorce and the custody battle, etc. I was left wrecked with no prospect for job, and a whole bunch of other stuff was done to me that we'll get into in a different show when we get more personal. But Pop went down a very similar path. Pop, why don't you summarize your hell?
I got wounded in Iraq, 2004, blown up near Ramadi. Got medevaced on, I think it was November 4th or 5th of 2004. Had a TBI with a minor stroke. And once I came home, my wife was just like, "I'm out. not taking care of you for the rest of your life, and usual shit. And then she proceeded to murder my dog, turn my life into a horrible country song backwards, and I lost my kids, was homeless for somewhere between 6 and 7 months. And when I say homeless, I was living in my car and eating off the dollar menu, and then every 2 or 3 days I'd spend the night at a buddy's house to use the shower and what have you. But yeah, I have been going round and round with the whole divorce custody bullshit for, I don't know, like a decade and a half. And every single time, I mean, I was called a murderer and assassin in open court, threatened with jail on several occasions. I literally, the only way I won more time with my kid is I had my ex-wife in court every 22 to 25 days for a little over 2 years. And I just won on attrition.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I wrote a check every month for the child support and mailed it in because I didn't want them taking it out of my check, because there's all kinds of questions with that. So,
Yeah, that's pretty much for our viewers out there. You can see that every guy in this room has been led to the slaughterhouse and had all of his things taken and his children taken from him, etc. And we know from years and years and years of experience now that we are hardly alone. And that's the whole point of what we're doing here. And as it turns out, that's what Veteran Hope is doing too. We want you guys to know that you're not alone.
Watch Grunt Speak live every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to join Pop for Supporter Sundays, go to redonkulas.com/donate and make a monthly pledge. A link is in the meat caser box.